Fitness Q50 presents Why Sleep Architecture Determines Athletic Recovery. Chapter 1: The Recovery Failure Pattern After 45. After 45, recovery begins to fail. Not suddenly, but consistently. Strength stalls, endurance plateaus, fatigue lingers longer than it should, workouts feel harder, results come slower, and most assume the same explanation: age, or training volume, or poor nutrition. But the real constraint is rarely addressed: sleep structure, not sleep duration. Structure. Most athletes still measure recovery in hours: 7 hours, 8 hours. That metric is incomplete because the body does not recover in time. It recovers in stages, and those stages must occur in sequence. Precisely. Deep sleep initiates physical repair. Rapid eye movement, REM sleep, restores neurological function. Both are required, both are often compromised. Quietly. Fragmentation increases with age. Sleep becomes lighter. Interruptions become more frequent, even if total time remains unchanged. This is where recovery breaks down. Not from lack of effort, but from lack of restoration. The physiological signal weakens, hormonal output declines, adaptation slows, and performance begins to drift, gradually, but predictably. This is the pattern most athletes recognize, but few understand, because the problem is not visible. It happens at night, inside the architecture of sleep itself. And until that architecture is restored, recovery will remain incomplete. Chapter 2: What sleep architecture actually is. Sleep is not a single state. It is a structured system, a sequence. The body cycles through distinct stages each night, repeatedly. This sequence is called sleep architecture. It follows a predictable pattern, approximately every 90 minutes, one full cycle, then it repeats across the entire night. Each cycle contains two primary states: non-REM sleep and REM sleep. Non-REM has 3 stages: stage 1 and stage 2, stage 3. Stage 3 is critical. Deep sleep. This is where physical restoration occurs. Tissue repair increases, growth hormone is released. Inflammation begins to resolve. Then the cycle shifts into REM sleep. This is neurological recovery. Motor patterns are refined. Memory is consolidated. The central nervous system recalibrates. Both states are required in the correct proportion and in the correct order. Early in the night, deep sleep dominates. Later in the night, REM expands. This distribution is not random. It is engineered by circadian biology. Disrupt the sequence, you disrupt recovery, even if total sleep time appears sufficient. This is the critical distinction. Time asleep does not equal recovery achieved. Stage progression determines output. If deep sleep is reduced, physical repair is incomplete. If REM is reduced, neurological performance declines. Most people never measure this. They assume sleep is binary, awake or asleep. But performance physiology is not binary. It is staged, layered, precise. Sleep must follow its architecture, or recovery begins to degrade. Chapter 3: Deep sleep and physical restoration. Deep sleep is the foundation of physical recovery. Not light sleep, not REM. Deep sleep, this is slow wave sleep. Stage 3, the most restorative phase. Brain activity slows dramatically. The body shifts into repair mode. This is where recovery actually happens. Growth hormone is released in pulses, large pulses, early in the night. This hormone drives tissue repair. Muscle fibers rebuild. Protein synthesis increases. Damage from training begins to resolve. This is the anabolic window, not post-workout, post-sleep onset. If deep sleep is reduced, that signal weakens, repair becomes incomplete. Strength adaptation slows, muscle retention declines. Quietly, inflammation also changes. Deep sleep reduces inflammatory load. It regulates immune response. Without it, inflammation persists longer. Recovery time extends. Joint stress accumulates. Fatigue compounds. There is also a neural component. The glymphatic system activates. Waste products are cleared from the brain. Metabolic byproducts are removed. This improves overall system efficiency. Without sufficient deep sleep, that clearance is reduced. The system remains burdened. This is why poor sleep feels heavy, not just tired, but impaired. Most athletes underestimate this stage because it is invisible. You cannot feel deep sleep directly, but you feel its absence. In slower recovery, in weaker performance, in reduced output. This is the constraint, not effort, not discipline, recovery capacity, and deep sleep is where it begins. Chapter 4: REM sleep and neurological performance. REM sleep governs neurological recovery, not physical repair. Control, coordination, execution. This is where the brain refines movement. Motor patterns are replayed, repeated, optimized. Skill becomes automatic. Efficiency improves. This is why technical performance depends on REM, not just practice. Practice creates the signal. REM consolidates it. Without REM sleep, skills remain unstable, inconsistent, timing degrades, precision drops. This becomes visible under fatigue. But the origin is neurological, not muscular. REM sleep also regulates the central nervous system. Sympathetic activity decreases, parasympathetic balance is restored. Stress load is reduced. This matters for performance because chronic stress impairs output. Reaction time slows, decision quality declines, endurance suffers. REM protects against this. It recalibrates the system. Emotionally, neurologically, strategically, there is also a cognitive layer. Memory is consolidated, complex patterns are integrated. This includes training adaptations, but also decision-making capacity. Focus improves, mental endurance stabilizes. Without sufficient REM, the system fragments. Attention becomes inconsistent, motivation fluctuates, execution becomes unreliable. This is often misinterpreted as lack of discipline or burnout, but the constraint is biological. REM deficiency. Most adults experience reduced REM density, especially with fragmented sleep or late night disruption. This creates a hidden performance ceiling. Training continues, effort remains high, but neurological output declines, subtly but consistently. This is why REM is non-negotiable, not for rest, for performance. Chapter 5, Hormonal Environment Controlled by Sleep Stages. Hormones are regulated during sleep, not randomly, precisely. Each stage drives a different signal. Deep sleep initiates anabolic activity. Growth hormone is released in pulses, large pulses, early in the night. This supports tissue repair, muscle preservation, recovery acceleration, but this is only part of the system. Testosterone depends on sleep continuity, not just duration. It rises during the night, peaks during REM-rich cycles, disrupt the cycle. You disrupt the signal. Even small awakenings matter. They fragment the hormonal cascade. Output declines quietly. Cortisol follows a different rhythm. It should be low at night and rise toward morning. This prepares the body for output. Energy availability increases, alertness improves, but poor sleep shifts this pattern. Cortisol remains elevated at night. Recovery is suppressed. Morning readiness declines. The system loses alignment. Insulin sensitivity is also affected. Sleep regulates glucose control and metabolic efficiency. Reduced sleep quality impairs both. Fuel utilization becomes less efficient. Fat oxidation decreases. Recovery becomes metabolically expensive. This compounds over time. Hormones do not operate independently. They are coordinated through sleep architecture. Stage progression drives timing. Timing drives output. If architecture is disrupted, the entire hormonal environment degrades, even if sleep duration appears adequate. This is the hidden failure point. Athletes focus on training variables, volume, intensity, frequency, but ignore hormonal regulation, which is governed at night during structured sleep cycles. This is the leverage point. Not more training, better recovery signaling. And that signal is built through sleep stages, not hours in bed. Chapter 6, the fragmentation problem. Sleep is often disrupted, not obviously. Subtly, these are micro awakenings, brief interruptions in sleep continuity, often unnoticed, but physiologically significant. Each interruption breaks the cycle. Stage progression is reset. Deep sleep is shortened. REM is delayed or missed entirely. This is fragmentation, the most common recovery failure, not lack of time, loss of structure. Causes are predictable. Alcohol, even small amounts. It suppresses REM, increases awakenings, late meals. Digestive activity remains elevated. Sleep depth decreases. Blue light exposure. Melatonin release is delayed. Sleep onset shifts later. Cycle timing is disrupted. Psychological stress. Cortisol remains elevated. The nervous system stays active. Sleep becomes shallow. Breathing disturbances. Sleep apnea. Reduced oxygen saturation. Frequent microarousals. Cycle integrity collapses. This is the critical point. 7 to 8 hours of fragmented sleep is not recovery. It is incomplete restoration. The body enters stages, but cannot sustain them. Deep sleep is cut short. REM cycles are interrupted and hormonal signaling is disrupted. Adaptation is reduced. Performance declines, gradually but consistently. This is why many athletes feel fatigued, despite enough sleep, because duration is intact. But architecture is broken. Fragmentation accumulates, night after night. Recovery debt builds, not from time lost, from structure lost. This is the hidden constraint. And until fragmentation is reduced, recovery will remain incomplete. Chapter 7, Aging and the Decline of Sleep Architecture. Sleep changes with age, not just duration. Structure. Deep sleep begins to decline after 40, gradually, but consistently. Stage 3 becomes shorter, less frequent, and harder to sustain. This reduces physical recovery capacity. At the source, growth hormone output declines. repair signaling weakens, muscle recovery slows, even with identical training. REM sleep also shifts. Timing becomes unstable, cycles fragment more easily, neurological recovery becomes inconsistent, coordination suffers, focus declines, execution becomes less precise. This is not a motivation problem, it is a structural change. Circadian rhythms also shift. Sleep pressure builds earlier, wake time shifts forward, total sleep window compresses. Many ignore this signal. They maintain the same schedule, despite a different biology. This creates misalignment. Sleep quality declines further, fragmentation increases, recovery becomes inefficient. There is also increased sensitivity to disruption. Alcohol has a stronger impact. Stress lingers longer. Environmental factors matter more. The system becomes less tolerant, less resilient. This is the key shift after 45. Recovery is no longer automatic. It must be engineered, precisely, because the baseline has changed. Sleep architecture is no longer robust. It is fragile, easily disrupted, slow to recover. This is why training alone fails. Volume cannot compensate. Intensity cannot override it without structured sleep. Adaptation declines, performance plateaus, and eventually regresses. This is not inevitable decline. It is unmanaged physiology, and it can be corrected, but only if the constraint is understood. Sleep architecture must be protected deliberately. Chapter 8. Measuring sleep architecture in practice. Sleep must be measured, not assumed. Subjective feeling is unreliable. You can feel rested and still be under-recovered because architecture is invisible. Measurement makes it visible. Most athletes use wearables, smartwatches, rings. These estimate sleep stages, not perfectly, but directionally useful. Focus on trends, not single nights. Night-to-night variation is normal. Patterns reveal the signal. 4 metrics matter most. Deep sleep duration, REM duration, sleep efficiency. HRV trends. Deep sleep reflects physical repair capacity. Low deep sleep, reduced tissue recovery. REM reflects neurological restoration. Low REM, reduced cognitive and motor performance. Sleep efficiency measures continuity. Time asleep versus time in bed. Low efficiency indicates fragmentation, even if duration appears adequate. HRV reflects recovery state. Autonomic balance. Higher HRV generally signals better recovery, but context matters. Training load must be considered. This is critical. No single metric tells the full story. You are analyzing a system, not a number. Lab grade measurement exists. Polysomnography and electrodes, brainwave tracking, highly accurate, but not practical for daily use. Wearables provide operational insight, enough to guide decisions, if interpreted correctly. This is the principle. Use data to identify constraints, not to chase perfection. If deep sleep trends down, adjust recovery inputs if REM is inconsistent. Examine late night behaviors. If efficiency drops, look for fragmentation sources. Measurement creates feedback. Feedback enables adjustment. Adjustment improves recovery. Without measurement, you are guessing, and guessing does not scale performance. Chapter 9. Performance Protocol. Engineering sleep architecture. Sleep architecture can be engineered deliberately, not passively. Environment is the first control point. Light exposure defines circadian timing. Reduce light at night, especially blue light. Signal the system to initiate sleep. Darkness drives melatonin release. This sets cycle timing. Temperature is equally important. Core temperature must drop. To initiate deep sleep, cool the environment consistently. This improves sleep depth immediately. Next is behavioral timing. Sleep and wake must be consistent. Daily. Irregular timing disrupts cycles, even if total hours remain constant. Caffeine must be controlled. It blocks adenosine signaling. Delays sleep onset, reduces deep sleep. Set a cutoff. Early afternoon at the latest. Alcohol is a major disruptor. Even small doses. It fragments sleep, suppresses REM, eliminate it, especially on training days. Nutrition timing also matters. Late meals elevate metabolic activity. Sleep becomes shallow. Finish eating earlier. Allow the system to downregulate. Training timing must align with sleep. Late high-intensity sessions elevate cortisol. Delay sleep onset. Shift cycles later. Place intense training earlier in the day. Use evenings for downregulation. Parasympathetic activation is required. Breathing protocols, low stimulation environments, reduce cognitive load, signal the body to transition. Supplementation can support the process, not replace it. Magnesium supports relaxation. Glycine may improve sleep depth, but these are secondary. Environment and behavior dominate. This is the protocol hierarchy. First control light, then temperature, then timing, then inputs. Each layer reinforces the next. Consistency is the multiplier. One good night does not solve the problem. Repeated structure does, night after night. This is how architecture stabilizes. And when architecture stabilizes, recovery capacity increases predictably. Chapter 10, Strategic Integration for Hybrid Athletes. Sleep data must inform training, not sit unused. Recovery capacity determines output daily. This is the shift from fixed programming to adaptive execution. High output days require high recovery. If sleep quality is high, train aggressively. Strength sessions, high intensity intervals, explosive work. The system is prepared. Use it. If recovery is compromised, adjust immediately. Reduce intensity. Maintain movement. Zone 2 work. Mobility sessions. Technical practice. This preserves adaptation without increasing fatigue. This is load matching. Training aligned to recovery state, not calendar. Weekly structure must also adapt. Stack high intensity sessions. After strong recovery nights, separate them from poor sleep periods. Avoid consecutive high stress days when recovery is low. This prevents cumulative fatigue and protects long-term output. Sleep metrics guide these decisions. Deep sleep trends, REM consistency, HRV baseline. These are signals, not suggestions. Ignore them. Performance drifts. Respect them. Performance compounds. There is also a strategic layer. Travel, work stress, life variables. These impact sleep architecture. Plan training around them, not against them. If sleep will be disrupted, reduce load proactively. Maintain consistency without forcing intensity. This is how elite operators train. They do not chase volume, they manage capacity precisely. Sleep becomes the control system, training becomes the output, and when both are aligned, performance becomes sustainable, not temporary. Chapter 11, Strategic Takeaway. Recovery is engineered, not assumed. Recovery is not automatic, it is controlled, deliberately. Most athletes focus on effort, training volume, intensity, consistency, but effort does not guarantee adaptation. Recovery does. And recovery is governed at night. Inside sleep architecture, not visible, but decisive. Deep sleep drives physical repair. REM restores neurological function. Both must occur in sequence without disruption. If that structure fails, adaptation fails. Quietly, training continues. Effort remains high, but progress slows, then stops. This is where most plateau. Not from lack of discipline, from incomplete recovery. This is the principle. Performance is limited by recovery capacity, not training capacity, and recovery capacity is built through sleep structure, not hours in bed. This changes the strategy. Sleep becomes a primary variable, not a passive outcome, and it must be protected, engineered, measured, because small disruptions compound, night after night. And so do improvements. This is the leverage point. Control the architecture. You control the outcome. Ignore it. Performance declines, gradually but inevitably. This is not about rest, and it is about adaptation. And adaptation is a biological process driven by signals, precise signals, delivered during structured sleep. This is the final principle. Recovery is not assumed, it is engineered.